Today, our Friday story is Mr. Tannen's Ties Rule. Whose ties are they, boys and girls? Mr. Tannen's, apostrophe S. It's his possession. These are his. So, just a little review of that on there. Be thinking of a tie that you want to create when we're all done. Mr. Tannen's Ties Rule. Okay, remember this was his favorite tie, the one that had the number 1 on it. Okay, let's find out. There's his closet brimming with all of his ties. It was career day at the Lyndhurst School, one day a year when the kids ruled. For an entire day, the students took over all the jobs at the school, including the job everybody wanted most, Mr. Tannen's job, the principal of Lyndhurst School. Early that morning, Mr. Tannen opened this bulging tie closet. He thumbed through his collection of 998 wild and crazy ties and picked out all the school job ties. Now remember, boys and girls, yesterday when we read the story, he only had 975. Now he's 2 away from 1,000 ties. So he pulled out all the school job ties. Mr. Tannen was known throughout the school and the town for his tie collection. His arms filled with ties, he headed to the auditorium where the kids were anxiously waiting. Career day always started with the tie ceremony. One by one, Mr. Tannen picked this lucky student's name from a big box. Each student came on stage and was given a job tie. This year, Kristen would be the art teacher, Alex the music director, Maria the science teacher, and Leo the cook. Mr. Tannen handed out all the ties. This one here looks like it would be for the school secretary. Except one. The auditorium grew quiet. Then Mr. Tannen stepped forward and took off his blue ribbon principal tie. We know that he loves this tie most of all. He reached into the box and pulled out a name. Olivia Spotford, you will be the principal for the day. And the crowd cheered. Uh-oh, look at Olivia. She does not look very happy about winning this honor, does she, boys and girls? Her cheeks are flush. Her eyes are bulging. The kids lined up wearing their ties and ready to rule. A tieless Mr. Tannen explained, today you will do the jobs we do every day, and we will take your place as students. Principal Olivia, you are in charge. Here are the keys to my office and my tie closet. Olivia stretched on tippy-toe to reach the microphone. Okay, school, I'm Miss Olivia, your new principal. We're going to have recess now. Mr. Tannen whispered to Olivia, it's only 8:30 in the morning. Then he smiled. It's official. Kids have taken over the school. Oh, can you imagine? She decided they were all going out to school, out to recess. Back at the school department, the director, Mr. Apple, was meeting with Mrs. Harding. She was from the education department in Washington, D.C., where the president lived. Mrs. Harding, we are so proud that the Lyndhurst School has been nominated for the National School Award, said Mr. Apple, as he nervously handed her a folder. As you can see, this school is one of the finest in the nation. Mr. Apple, on paper it looks like a fine school, but before giving out the award, I must see every school for myself. The Lyndhurst School is the last school I need to visit. Oh, yes, of course, said Mr. Apple. Let's go there right now. You will be very impressed. See his little wedding picture on the wall? As Mr. Apple and Mrs. Harding entered the school, they came upon kids washing the windows in the front hall. Sammy was giving orders. Mrs. Harding wrote something in her notebook. Mr. Apple was puzzled. Where is Ms. Jan, the janitor, he thought. When they reached the principal's office, psst, whose office is it? It's the principal's office, apostrophe S. A small head poked up from behind the desk. May I help you? Asked Colleen. Yes. We are here to see the principal, said Mr. Apple. Colleen dialed the phone. Hello, principal. Mr. Apple and a lady are here to see you. Then Colleen looked at Mr. Apple. The principal would like to know what this is about. Please tell the principal that I am here to tour the school with Mrs. Harding from Washington, D.C., said Mr. Apple impatiently. Colleen repeated that information into the phone, then said, sorry, the principal's busy. Please come back after your tour You toured the school. Oh my goodness, Mr. Apple was fuming. His face turned red, but he calmly managed to say, Mrs. Harding, let's take the tour now. You can meet the principal later. Meanwhile, Mr. Tannen was spending his day as a student. He knew all the spelling words, raising his hand, pick me, pick me. He volunteered to help in math class, and he sang his heart out during music. Mr. Apple and Mrs. Harding made their way around the school. Kristen's art class was painting a giant mural, and Maria led the science class on a bug-finding expedition. Maria proudly showed Mr. Apple a huge beetle. Mrs. Harding silently scribbled in her notebook. This tour is not going well, thought Mr. Apple. In the cafeteria, Leo's creation, the super-duper tuna and peanut butter taco, was a big hit. In history class, Mrs. Harding got all wrapped up in the ancient Egypt lesson. Then she wrote furiously in her notebook. Oh no, said Mr. Apple, this is a disaster. As they passed the gym, Mr. Apple noticed a rather large student, and he rubbed his eyes. It can't be, he thought. I must be seeing things. Look who's outside playing. Finally, Mr. Apple and Mrs. Harding returned to the principal's office. Whose office was it? The principal's. Apostrophe S. This time, Mr. Apple was firm. Now, Colleen, I really need to see Mr. Tannen. But Mr. Apple, you said you wanted to see Mr. Tannen. You said you never said you wanted to see Mr. Tannen. You said you wanted to see the principal. Olivia's the principal today. The door to Mr. Tannen's office opened. I'm the principal, Miss Olivia, said Olivia. Welcome, Mrs. Harding. Mr. Apple just about lost his temper. What is going on in this school? Where is Mr. Tannen? Oh, Mr. Tannen is in gym class, probably playing kickball, said Olivia. Playing kickball? Repeated Mrs. Harding. I would be happy to get him, said Colleen, but first you will need to write a note to dismiss him from class. Mr. Apple rolled his eyes and quickly wrote the note. Colleen ran off toward the gym. Mr. Apple looked at Mrs. Harding. She was writing in her notebook again. Rats! The Lyndhurst School will never get the award now, thought Mr. Apple. Within minutes, Mr. Tannen ran panting into the office. Yes, Miss Olivia, you wanted to see me? Mr. Apple did not look happy. Mr. Tannen, these fine people would like to speak with you, said Olivia. You may use my office. The meeting went on for an hour. Mr. Tannen told Mrs. Harding all about Career Day and, of course, about his tie collection. When they came out of the office, Mr. Apple and Mrs. Harding were smiling and each wearing ties. Mr. Tannen, said Mrs. Harding, I have never seen a school where the students were so excited about learning. You have truly made learning fun. She opened her bag and pulled out a certificate. I hereby declare Lyndhurst School the winner of the National School Award. The students all cheered. Mrs. Harding continued, Mr. Tannen, you and your students will be invited to Washington, D.C. Olivia draped the Washington, D.C. tie around Mr. Tannen's neck. Mr. Tannen, she said, here's the perfect tie for your trip. There's a picture of it. All right, in your next video, you're going to do a direct drawing, and you're going to create your own special tie and tell me why you did that. It's going to be fun.